Hello, how are you doing? I sincerely hope that you're doing well. I hope that the sound of my voice reaches your ears at a time when you're open and receptive to ideas that you may not have paid much attention to before. I endeavor to talk to you this evening in hopes that maybe I can reach you in ways that I've reached other people in my lifetime. Today, I've felt something that I feel frequently, whether it's in my day to day interactions with people in real life, place to place, here or there, from simple greetings to small talk, or to those who I'm close to, deep conversation, in which it feels ironic at times. Say if I come back home and I'm bored or something, and I look online, it's very unfortunate in the sense that the same ideas and what I feel are stumbling blocks to progression are just displayed in abundance, just as much, if not more, than what you experience in your day to day. No matter what we try to portray ourselves as, oftentimes we will say things in the digital space that we would never say to people in their face. Some are like that, some aren't. I'm the same person when we're sitting down one on one hanging out that I will be with you at a party or in a group of people. I'm the same person that I am when we're alone having a heart to heart that I am in front of a camera. The same way I am when the camera's off. I say that to say this. It's disheartening sometimes living in this world that we live in. It's primarily because I'm a very optimistic, positive person. But, plot twist, I've not always been this way. Nevertheless, it can give me pause because it doesn't take much imagination or much legwork if the imaginative juices aren't flowing to figure out that we live in a world where we have everything at the tips of our fingertips, right? We have tools that our species has never had in its entire existence. We have more knowledge in our pockets that we carry around than was in the whole entire Library of Alexandria before it burned down. Now, if you sit and you think about that for a second, right? At the time when that library was destroyed, it essentially had all the human knowledge up to that point in one place. Originals, copies, everything. Right? And whether we realize it or not, we have that right now. At the time when all that was lost, the world was in a position where it could go one of two ways. It could have self-destructed and burned out and died from that lack of knowledge. Somehow, we've continued and prospered. I don't mean small sections or individually, I mean as a collective, as a species. Right? And now, in this day and age, we are at a point where we've surpassed that tenfold. Yet, where I began this conversation, IRL, and comparing that to digital interactions, there's wholly no excuse for being ignorant anymore. Yet, so many places you look, so many things you see, so many things you hear, so many things people say, so many behaviors you can observe are just pure ignorance. You know? And it's not for lack of knowledge, like I said before. It's people willfully, of their own free will, using their ignorance to justify their actions. And one of the worst parts of that is they do that full well knowing that they're wrong. Now, one thing I will readily admit is that I was born, raised, and matured in Western society. If you live somewhere else on the globe, it's going to be different. Not unique on my side or your side, just different. In the sense that in a Western capitalistic patriarchal society, okay, selfishness is one of the key ingredients that keeps the machine running. In this type of societal construct, you're taught that the only way you can achieve is at the expense of others. In fact, it's preferred. You're taught that it's better for you to succeed as long as you make it. If you have any extension of that, it only extends as far as me and mine. Me, my family, my loved ones, my immediate circle. It's basically looked upon as everybody outside of me and my immediate family, to hell with them. Pardon my French. You know, where it gets more malevolent is that people naturally, from being indoctrinated like this, fall into this behavioral pattern of, not only do I want to achieve what I want to achieve, I want to be successful, I want to obtain the things that I want, and I want to make my life the way I want it. It goes one step further where not only do I want that for myself, I have to do that at the expense of others. Better yet, if I can do that to other people different than myself. And that's puzzling to me, okay? I know for sure that I am not the only person on this planet that feels this way, but I was raised differently, you know? I see actions, thought patterns, and things on display as though people had no home training at all. Because one of the first things you learn as a child is treat other people as you want to be treated. Yet, when you observe the world, you see so much cruelty. You see so much tribalism. You see people just totally incapable of putting someone else ahead of themselves. It is on the verge of impossibility for other people sometimes to think of others before they think of themselves. A lot of times in the society, it can often make you believe that doing for self or doing for yourself first at the expense of others is the natural order. And that if you're ever practicing mercy or charity or kindness, that it's detrimental to you yourself, or worse yet, will have you in the mindset of there's something wrong with you if that's your outlook. Because you see this dog eat dog drama playing out in front of you on a daily basis. You know, where you see economic disparity, imbalances in the educational system, people facing hardship on housing. But there are through lines through all of these things, right? And I realize that, like, I'm only one person. As far as I know, I have no superpowers. So what do I mean? Like, I know that I can't fix all of the things that I worry about. But I am a firm believer in each one teach one. It takes a village to raise a child. You know, be better. Those type of idioms get me through sometimes because I believe those are things that you can put into action, put into play in your life on a daily basis and see the rewards of get the fruits from your labor. It's interesting to me because if you study human history, right, you see so many points in our story as a species that are not exactly the same as right now, but pretty darn close. You know? And usually, in these different stages before us, as we exist today, you see these same mistakes that are being repeated over and over again. And it's hard to wrap my head around it because it would be easier for me to understand that we didn't know better. But I see us as human beings falling into those same traps over and over and over again. In which we end up failing generation after generation. I don't want to be as extreme to say that we're headed the opposite of evolution, but it does feel like we're moving backwards sometimes. There's so many things currently that I believe could disappear in a short amount of time. Not overnight, but in a relatively short amount of time. That could completely change the dynamic of this world that we live in. But there's so much more energy for the shenanigans, you know? And it's disappointing because things like negativity, hatred, jealousy, envy, selfishness, all these things that I've spoken of, right? Close your eyes and imagine for a minute how much bandwidth that takes. If you use a percentage or a round number, whatever, it only takes X amount of energy to exercise those things, right? Because it only holds so much power. When in reality, man, some of those things that I spoke of, how I prefer to view the world, those things carry so much more power. And they take none of the heavy lifting or energy that it does for negativity. And yet we still do not use it. That's why when you see somebody positive, optimistic, upbeat, happy, oftentimes you will see skits and stuff where people are like, what's wrong with you? Like there's something wrong with just being that way. Like you can't be happy. Like you can't be glass half full, right? And even with all these things that I've laid out, I would try to submit that that's the more powerful thing. It's also the more easiest, it's also easier. Simply because it takes a smaller amount of energy to kick off, and it holds more power in the first place. As a group, as a whole, if we spent half the amount of time in positivity as we do in negativity, if we lived half as much time in the light as we do in the dark, we could accomplish so much, man. That's where I try to keep my attention and to keep my gaze. Because oftentimes it's a solemn walk, man. I value my serenity. I value my peace. But solemnity doesn't have to be loneliness. It doesn't have to mean exclusion. These are all things that we should be able to practice acceptance and to be inclusive with, and to make a world a better place to live in. But these are just my two Abraham Lincolns. I'm TJ. Holler at me.